All right, 1 second, folks. I am, my computer is sort of spinning its wheels right now. Okay. Okay. Can everybody see my slide that I'm sharing? Excellent. All right, so welcome to our November 11th meeting of the North Texas Archaeological Society. And I want to start out by just wishing everybody happy holidays as we get going. So importantly, this will be the last meeting of 2021. There's not a December meeting, so there's never a December meeting. So I just want to make sure everybody's aware. So our next meeting would actually be in January. So happy holidays to everybody, and happy Veterans Day. So I want to thank all the veterans we have. We have a lot of veterans who are members of NTAS, and family members of veterans and friends and so forth, including myself. So thank you very much. Our January, that should say January 2022 guest speaker is Mr. Rob Dinkhouse. He is the director of the Fort Worth Nature Center and Refuge, and so he's going to provide a really cool overview of the Fort Worth Nature Center and Refuge, but tie in a lot of the history. And some of you folks might be familiar with the history that our society has with that institution. And it's actually really cool. NTAS has been working out at the Fort Worth Nature Center and Refuge since at least the 1970s. So almost a 50-year relationship between our society and that facility. So that's really neat, and I look forward to that program. So I hope you join. For now, we are obviously continuing our meetings virtual, but we do have the goal and hope that by January, our next meeting, that we can meet in person. So we're going to keep everybody posted as we work toward making that decision. So we'll provide everybody plenty of notice in advance. And thanks again to our donors who continue to provide donations. That allows us to do a lot. Like all the scholarships we were able to provide in 2021. And y'all should see or have seen some of those updates with our newsletters of our scholarship recipients. Welcome to the new members who've joined since our last monthly meeting. We continue to receive new members, and continue to please share the word about our free memberships for students. I believe we've awarded 4 of those this year. We still have the ability to award more, so just share that word. We have free memberships for students. We're up to 227 members as of right now. Some of our exciting projects. So Dr. Tim Sullivan, the Secretary of NTAS, is coordinating an archaeological lab project, which will be November 19th and 20th. So please contact Dr. Sullivan. He's put information about this in the November newsletter, so check the newsletter for more details. And this is an exciting project working with archaeological collections from New Mexico and Texas. We did decide, the executive committee, to forego the Christmas party for December. So the membership was solicited to make that decision, and we didn't receive enough feedback to move forward with the Christmas party. So that's the decision that was made. So no Christmas party for this year, but for next year in 2022, mark your calendar, second Saturday in December. December 11th and 12th. Those are the excavation dates for NTAS. Those are the dates that are reserved for NTAS to participate at the Clovis Field project, which is in Mills County. And check the November newsletter for more details. And Chris Mice is our point of contact. So if you're interested to sign up, please contact Chris or ask Chris if you have questions about that project. But we're excited, and I hope that we get a lot of interest to participate. We have a couple of committees that are really looking for folks. We have an awards committee. This is a brand new committee, and we're still trying to build that committee. We want to be able to recognize the NTAS folks who have, contributed over the last year or perhaps over several years. So, please consider joining that and help us recognize our fellow members. And then a nominating committee. Every 2 years, we do have to develop a nominating committee to help fill the executive committee positions that need to be filled every 2 years. So we're looking for folks to join that too. So 2 committees, please consider and contact me if you're interested. We will be co-hosting. So NTAS will be co-hosting the 93rd TAS annual meeting, which will be in Tyler next year. So this should be an in-person meeting. And that's the plan for an in-person meeting in Tyler. We'll co-host with UT Tyler, and we're looking for volunteers. So this will be a lot of fun. We've got a great group of volunteers that are NTAS folks that are already put together, but we're looking for more folks. So if interested, please contact Chris. And then with that, our November guest speaker is Mrs. Marybeth Tomka. And Marybeth, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, and then the floor is yours. All right.
Okay, so unmute myself so you can hear me talking to myself while I'm doing this. Okay, so Jimmy gave me a blanket of just, whatever you want to talk about. As many of you know, curation is my passion. So that's sort of what I'm going to talk about, but hopefully with a different twist and with pictures so you guys know why I'm so passionate about good curation. There's a couple of things that I want to just start off with that people tend to forget. And that's the amount of time it takes to go from the field to the final report. It takes a lot of work on a lot of people's schedules to do that. And then at the very end, it takes a lot of time to prep a collection for curation, for proper curation. And then finally, the big thing is we have to remember that we're using the scientific method. And I know the first two you can easily connect to my topic, and the last statement I think you'll see as I go through this what we're talking about. But the let's see if I can figure out how to advance here. Oh, right there. So the whole thing about replicability in the scientific method is so that we can look at these collections. And this is Herald Collection from the 1930s, and they're not quite accessible. I mean, the tag tells me it's from the Herald site and they're on the tools, but it doesn't give me provenience information. So that's not a good way to curate, because then I can't immediately pick up that item, even though it's got a number on it, and go immediately to the provenience. We prefer to have the provenience information with it. On the right hand of the screen is a bunch of Herald points. And again, they're all there together. Yes, we can go and find out what the catalog numbers relate to provenience wise, but they're not quite the way we want them to be accessible, so that you can immediately go to a drawer and know this drawer is going to have that point that I'm looking for, which is what I aim to do for researchers. This is more of Herald and the way it was in there originally before we did any rehab work on it. And you'll see the same things that I'm been saying there. So, the issues are we don't have the tags. The collection is really not ready for somebody to come in and start working on it. So that slows down the process. If a person comes in and says, I really want to go back and look at the Herald Collection, and I have to say it's not quite ready. And so I have lots of collections that I can't allow people to go into. Two things possibly of interest to North Texas folks is first, Leroy Johnson's study in the 60s, I believe, on Gary points and variants of Gary points. When I went into the collection to pull that out for Zach Selden so that he could do some measurements and some 3D scanning on it, somebody had gone in and completely disassembled all of the variant bags. So all I had was catalog numbers, and I couldn't relate those to, there was no list anywhere that had all of those variants on it. So that whole study, we've lost the provenience, we've lost the information because somebody went in there and messed with it instead of writing down what they were doing and what the original things. The other thing that's I think is of general interest is that Elton Pruitt discovered several years ago that the 1954 type collection of points and dart points specifically had been messed with. And so he's been working with trying to get that back so that somebody can go back and say, okay, Deanne Soom's story called this a so-and-so, and it fits the definition because of this. So those are two kind of crucial kinds of things where I got caught and I couldn't do that. I couldn't replicate what was in there because it had been disassembled. Okay, so a few more pictures of that. Okay, this is a collection from Moorhis Mound, VT1. So that was dug in the 1930s also. Some people were in there in 32 and then again in 38. And I had a researcher again who wanted to come in, and this is what 2 drawers of bifaces look like. I mean, just they're in there. Yes, they have specimen numbers on them and we can relate it, but there's probably, I'd say we're probably looking at maybe 5,000 bifaces, which all need to be put into individual bags with individual tags so that somebody can go immediately back to that. And we don't have final reports on these things. We just have the old typewritten and sometimes handwritten inventories. And just in case you wonder, typewriter ribbons were cotton back in the old days, and that does not OCR well. I mean, you can scan it, but you cannot run a program on it, at least a commercial program on it, and get that data immediately out. It comes over garbled. You just can't do it. And I've tried several different programs. Okay. This is a collection from George C. Davis from 1968 to 1970, the big excavations that Deanne Story did. And you'll see that in all these drawers are shirts, but there are no tags. They don't tell me what type is in there. And that all has to be rehabbed at some point. And again, it's an important collection, as I think anybody would admit. George C. Davis is one of the big ones, but that's a lot of work that needs to be done. That's a close-up of it. The bags are, I think, 9x12s, and they're about, each of these drawers is 3 inches. So some of the bags are like 4 or 5 inches thick. And those of you who have done lab work with me know my rule about a bag should be enough, big enough for everything to fit without being pregnant. Well, these are very pregnant bags. They're overfilled, excuse me. This is the way a collection should look. Again, this is Herald site. We had a Preservation Trust Fund through THC to do rehab work on it. So now you can see I have a drawer and all the things are sorted out, and they tell me exactly what's in there. They tell me I've got corner notch dart points on the left and scalar and arrow points on the right. So anybody comes to me and says, I want to see, the Herald points from the Herald site, I can go to this drawer and I can pull it out. This is an example of what our WPA files look like, something that we're working on with archival students to come in and help us do inventories and scan them all so that we have digital images. So this is what they look like to begin with. That's an example of, let's see, what is that from? One of the Travis County. I don't know that one offhand. It doesn't have the trinomial on it because this was way before trinomials. And you can see that there's, over 5,000 specimen numbers. So again, another collection, not digitized, not accessible. But then we have these beautiful things in here where somebody went to the effort to draw all of those, and those are from Fall Creek, which is west of Austin. This is an example of the kinds of things that we find in a collection when we go back to rehab. So this is the sheet with the photo on it, which has been rubber cemented on. This is the sheet that was on top of this. So the rubber cement has leaked through, and the acidic nature of the paper has left a stain on this piece of paper. And hopefully you can see that there's some dark stains on this other piece of paper, and that's the one behind it. So we got 3 pieces of paper with staining on them because of old ways of curation and why things need to be rehabbed. Now, we wouldn't do that today, but we still have issues with, well, sometimes have issues with the way people put their records together that we can't always find what we'd like to find. This is an oversized map, so it's, or tally sheet. So it's probably, I think it was bigger than ledger size, so I couldn't put it on my flatbed scanner. And it's been put together with tape. So you're seeing down the center, or down the thirds, I should say, where the tape has darkened and probably faded off. I don't have the facilities to do it, but the best way to deal with this is to humidify this paper again and flatten it out, and then put it in like a map folder or an oversized folder. And then these are map folders. So this is right out of one of the drawers and Fall Creek sites. And you just have beautiful drawings, beautiful hand done drawings on acetate. That's what this paper is, or field drawings that were done. But it's, it's sitting, this is old butcher paper. So it needs to be put into acid-free folders. So we stop the migration. But time and money, people, time and money. We also get these kinds of things. Most of what I'm showing is WPA error, or early 60s, 50s, 60s stuff. So it's really ignorance and not ignorance. What's a better word for ignorance? People just didn't know any better. We didn't have the technology. We didn't understand better. So they cut little holes in their report and stuck the whole picture in there. So what we do, and I'll show you a picture of that in just a second, what we do is we scan this page so that we have the original image, and then we pull the photo off. So this is a not so great image of what a scanned image would be that goes in that report now. And then this, whoops, too fast. And then this would be the page, the original page stays in there too. So you have two copies. You have the scanned image, so somebody can match that up with the digital copy or the PDF of the report, and then the original went in there. And then the photos just get put into polyethylene holders for safekeeping, and then get put into the photograph files so that they're in better shape. And they're also flatter. WPA cataloged everything on cards. One of the student projects these days is all these cards, and there's multiple drawers of them. All these cards have been scanned, and I give people an Excel template and say, pull up this scanned version and enter all the data from that, because OCR cannot read these at all. And because it's sort of like a table format, OCR readers get really confused. But this is what it looks like after you rehab a collection, where it's got all this information on it. And what you can't see, or maybe not, I don't know how if you've got your, here, let me move that over. You can see on the right-hand side, if that's where your images of us are, the right-hand side has got the TARL accession number on it, so that we have all that information. And then the boxes get labeled with everything that's in here, so people know exactly what is in there and how it's arranged. Ideally, they would be in filing cabinets. If you've been to TARL, you know we have limits on space. So in our reorganization these last couple of years, we've made the decision that the river basin surveys and the WPA projects will not go into filing cabinets until we can find more space for them. So when they get rehabbed, they'll go into, this is a polyethylene box. So they'll get rehabbed nicely and put in there and put back in there. Okay, let's see. Okay, so what do we do that makes this so much easier? So on the left-hand side of the screen, that is an image out of one of my tables for the Herald site. And so it's telling you unit, it's telling you associated feature, it's telling you that in my classification, it's chipstone debitage, but then you'll see the middle of that sheet, it says flint fragments flakes. So we're trying to record what it was before and what it is now. There's also this little button here on Alive, so that it would take you immediately to tell you where this bag is located. Bottom of the thing, we had a lot of discards. Sometimes things were discarded and recorded as discarded. Sometimes they were recorded as discarded, but not discarded. And so we've got the little tracking stuff down below. And on the right-hand side, again, if the images of us are on, I'm going to move that over because the images are coming. This is what I do. I take the these two categories, superclass and class. I run what is a pivot table in Excel, and then get these counts. So this is a summary count of everything that's in the collection. All right, and then I just put this over my little button. And then, just so you don't think I only do that to the artifacts, here is the inventory of the records. And again, I have a standard way of doing it. Field is the, Field is the documentation source, or administration, or lab curation. The kind of record that it is it a report? Is it a lab inventory? Is it field notes? And then photo log. So here's the photo log. And this is from Herald site, was part of the Possum Kingdom excavation. So you'll see, there's a photo log. Here's the missing and discarded specimens inventory. And when these get a final filing cabinet, because it's WPA, there'll be another column on there that tells me exactly where that is. So we do a standard records inventory and we do a standard artifact inventory, which is basic yet useful enough for somebody to look, both of them useful enough for somebody to look and find what they're really looking for, or whether or not they even want to come to Tarl. Do we have what they hope we have? And then all of it gets tracked in my database with this kind of a tracking system. This is my accession record. Obviously, I haven't updated it because both of these should be checked. So Possum Kingdom Reservoir Survey, UT, WPA, University of Texas, all the sites that were recorded during their collection states, 38, 39, when it showed up at the precursor to Tarl, and when we assigned it an accession number. Also down here, it tells me I have stuff in GC, I have stuff in human osteology because there were burials from this site. I have material in bulk collections, lithic other, that's what LO is. GCA, that's where my ground stone is. Tells me I have 6 shelves worth of stuff in LO and 56 drawers of material, and that number is the original number, so that needs to be changed. But this is what I would do if I was coming to look for it. I'm going to move this guy again. I'm just assuming that it's over that. I have all of these buttons, command buttons, that will take me to different things. So if this was a live shot of my database, I could click one of these guys and it would bring up where the locations are of each of the projects. So that's basically it in a nutshell. The rehab effort is something that we're doing all the time, but the idea is that if we do lab processing and analysis and then go straight into curation, and we do it in a logical sense, we can track all of it so that it looks like those slides I showed you of the beautiful little sorting bag tags in there, so that we can find it, so that we can go back in and, you know, say, yeah, you know, so-and-so called this whatever, but I think it's really this. Or go back and look and go, yeah, now I understand why he called it whatever. So that's basically what I do for a living and what I enjoy doing for a living, which I guess could be weird for some people. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we can take questions, or I can talk more because I'm not shy. I will talk.
All right. Thank you, Marybeth. Excellent presentation and very important, you know, for what we do in archaeology. We have a question in chat from Hannah talking about, I think, your last slide. What software does this format belong to, logging artifacts?
Okay. I have a SQL server back into my database. The format that you were seeing is the Microsoft Access front end. So everybody can view the data in Access, and it's a little more user-friendly. Now, if somebody came and said, can you give me the inventory, I can export it to Excel for them. I've never been very happy with a lot of the canned programs that are out there for collections management. So I built that front end and then migrated it to SQL backend. But there's lots of stuff out there. I would push for a relational database regardless. Don't use Excel if you want to be able to minimize and get data to relate really well. You want to use a relational database, be it Access or something else.
And then Hannah's follow-up question, is it available for museums to use?
Yeah, I mean, it's a part of Office Pro version. So if you buy the Pro version of Office, or I guess the 365 version now, it is part of that that program. Now, my database is not, but if you're interested in that kind of thing and want to build something, I'd be happy to help, figure that out.
And Hannah's got more questions here. Let me see if I can catch one or two of them. So what would you recommend? And can I email you and get the link?
Yes, she may most definitely email me. Just go to the Tarl website, and my email is on there. I'd be more than happy to do a Zoom call or talk through it. Anybody can use it, or use the software, and it's really easy to set up very simple databases. Mine is by no means simple because I have so many tables linked to so many other tables so that I can get all the information I want with a click or two and not have to go downstairs to where my records are to look something up. That's a big thing. Want it at your fingertips.
All right, thank you. And then from Lori, after a site's excavated and the artifacts from the assemblage come in, can you walk through the steps before it is considered officially curated?
Okay. So Lori, if you can remember when you came into the lab in Kerrville, we were doing sorting, getting stuff ready for an analyst. So that all the debitage would be put together, when everything's sorted and in the computer for original counts, we would give it to analysts. We would ask the analysts to return the material and digital files to us, or paper files if they have them, with certain categories. That all would get ingested into a project database, the way I'm envisioning Kerrville, into a project database. And then what Lori was doing on Sunday, 5 days ago, was she was putting final curation tags into the Ed Melton site artifact backs. So we had ingested everything. The last step is putting those tags in there. Once we put those tags in there, we find a location for it. We record everything in the database of where it is. And then all the paper files get filed, and all the digital files get put into an accession file. That's a 2-part number. It's got Tarl in front of it, but then it's got the year that the accession came in, followed by a sequential number. So it gets put in 2 different places, paper files and then the digital files on our server. Then it's curated, and hopefully it's put up in a way that somebody can go right to that and pick out whatever they need.
Okay. From Tim, what does a researcher have to do to come to Tarl and research a collection from the past?
You have to go to our website and you have to fill out a request for access form. Or you can email me. We can talk about what you might want to do, whether I think the collection you want to look at is accessible. If it looks like some of those first slides in this presentation, it's not going to really be accessible. But we can talk about that. And then we agree on dates and times and what you want to do. And then you come on down. And if you're doing it for fun and giggles, it's free. If you're doing it for a project that you're getting paid for, it's going to be a charge. But again, we can talk about that at a later time.
Tim's follow-up question, is Garcia pasture accessible?
Just by the name, I have no clue. I have over 5,000 accessions, so I need like a trinomial or a project CF8. I can look. Tim, please send me an email tomorrow and I will look in the database.
All right. Thanks, Marybeth.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've got a question while we're, waiting on other folks for chat, and then we'll get to the floor. But you talked about OCR and the difficulty of some of the records in making those OCR, ready so the content is searchable and so forth. So with those kinds of collections where you have that difficulty because of the kind of paper type,
Yeah.
whatever it is, are you able to bring some of those collections into a searchable format? And then can you also help explain what OCR is for folks?
Okay. OCR is optical carriage recognition. So in other words, the computer program looks at all of the letters that it just read, and if it understands it as being a word, it will print it, it will recognize it as a word. When you have fuzzy typewriter ribbon, you might get part of one letter, or you might get two letters stuck together, and so you can't really read them. As long as we can digitize them and you can read the scan, I think that's good enough. For things like the catalogs, we have to do the physical entry of it to make it accessible. So field notes, burial forms, that kind of thing, photographs, all of that, just having a scan is fine. And then everything else that you need a live file, yeah, you've got to do the data entry. Now, the point that I probably didn't make, and I should have, is we're scanning all these files so that if paper disappears, we still have them, but also because we don't want people touching some of the old files, and therefore we can use the digital proxies and people can go from there.
All right. Thanks, Marybeth. From Sunny, what classifies as a non-accessible collection?
Something where I cannot relate an item in a box to a particular thing on in an inventory. So those boxes, those two drawers I showed you of all those bifaces, that's not accessible. We would have to, a researcher wanted access to that. I might have to work out a deal with, we can give them bags and they can bag and tag as they go through for me, so that it makes it accessible for somebody else. Or, you may be just looking for one or two artifacts, in which case I wouldn't expect you to do that. But it's just like with archaeology, that the people who do the ground disturbance have to pay for the archaeology. The people who want into my collections have to help me make them more accessible for people down the road.
Thank you. From Lori, I learned so much in a short time. It's not weird to love curation.
Well, good, because I'm not weird.
Will you be having a TAS Curation Academy or offer a TARL curation training certification in the future?
I'll have to talk with Jimmy about the former. The latter, yes, we will continue to have work days at TARL. And during that, you will be informally taught. Hopefully you learned something this weekend. I think you did. But even if Jimmy and I agree on a Curation Academy, I think it would be better titled as a Processing and Curation Academy, because I think the processing of a collection through analysis is just as important as putting it on the shelf.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. So that question about a Curation Academy or a Lab Academy has been asked every year that I've been part of the Academy program, so a decade. And we've talked about that, Marybeth and I and a lot of other folks, and we have kicked around something like an Academy Lab, a Lab Academy, a variety of ways of looking at it. So that's been discussed, and and it may be time we try to kick that off. So we'll talk about that. Thanks, Lori.
Mm-hmm. But anybody who is interested in becoming part of my curation task force, please just send me an email, and we, we will continue, probably not till January, but we will continue to try to schedule monthly or every couple of months a work day. We have a lot of TAS work to do. And then Carl has quite a few artifacts that need to be rehabbed. So yeah, I got plenty of things to keep people busy and teaching.
All right. And I don't see any questions in the chat. Do we have any questions from the floor? Any questions for Marybeth?
Thanks, Sonny.
Yeah, Sonny says great presentation. Well,
I have one really quick. Hi, Marybeth. Thank you so much. Does UT have a museum studies or a curation program where Tarl works with students? I haven't been there.
There is. It's in the Bridges disciplining program. But as far as I am concerned, it barely scratches the surface of what they need. Next semester, Dr. Fred Valdez, who is Tarl's newest director, is teaching a practicum class, and we have yet to nail down the curriculum and other things, but it will be a couple weeks of lectures and readings on processing and curation and that kind of thing. And then we're letting the students loose in Tarl's collections. And so I'm hoping also to get Tarl collections and also some TAS collections processed during that, because we might have 10 to 12 students, and 10 to 12 students at 10 hours a week, we can get a bunch done.
Yeah, that's great. That's why I asked. It seems like you could use a lot of help.
Thank you. I can. Anytime you want to come down and help, please.
All right. And Lori says, awesome presentation. Keep me posted on the future Tarl workforce.
Oh, of course, Lori.
Excellent topic, well presented from Jen. And Hannah asks, where would you recommend for museum studies?
There's a bunch of places, but I'd like to talk to you individually, because I can then feel out the kinds of focus you might need and kind of target you. But there's lots of programs out there. There are some programs where you can just get a certification, like I did in collections management. So I was able to really focus in on what I needed and ignore everything else, like exhibits. I don't care about exhibits. I want to know collections care and conservation and understanding HVAC systems, so for environments. But yeah, just let me know, and we can, as I said, we can have a Zoom call.
All right. And from Stephen Chapman, very informative, especially the photos of the inaccessible collection on forums.
So when are you coming down, Steve?
There he is.
Miss talking to you, my friend.
Okay, well, do we have any more questions from the floor?
And it is fun. It is fun doing what I'm doing. It's not boring. It's the one place you get to see all the artifacts. Yeah. It may not be fun for everybody because they want to dig, but as your back goes out, you need to be able to sit down and do work, and lab work is a way to do it.
Missy says, so true.
Missy's just slightly older than I am.
All right. Well, if no further questions, Marybeth, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Great presentation, and as you say, this is a critical part of archaeology. And I know every time you present or talking about folks with projects, whether it's a contract project or a research project, you always bring up the importance of considering the lab component and eventual curation and
Right.
keeping that in mind. So I really appreciate you putting this together for us, because it's very important for folks to understand this, and make contact with you if they're not familiar.
Yeah. I have a hard time with a lot of the contract firms don't feel comfortable reaching out, but I keep trying to tell them, no, call me when you're working on your project and I'll help you find cheaper ways around things, or tell you some shortcuts, or, no, you don't have to curate everything, as long as your sponsor and your client are okay with that, and THC or the federal agency is okay with that. No, let's talk about what we don't have to curate, because we're running out of space.
All right. Thank you so much. And with that, I want to wish everybody a good night. And just a quick reminder that our next meeting is scheduled for January. So no meeting in December, and we decided not to have a Christmas party. So next NTAS meeting will be in January, and we will keep you informed if we're going to have that in person. So with that, good night, everybody, and happy holidays.